All right, so this will be a presentation of your new employee stock ownership plan. And here's the things we'll be talking about tonight. Explain to you a little bit more about how it's a long-term retirement program for you. We'll talk about the details of how it works and what the benefits are going to be for each one of you. What are the factors that are going to make this account grow so that over a period of time you have more money available for your retirement years? And that's going to be because as you start transitioning to becoming employee owners, as opposed to just employees, you may find that your approach to your job changes a little bit because you have that vested interest in the company. Even more of a closer alignment between your own personal goals and that of the company as well, because you're becoming an equity partner, a part owner of the organization. So it is a program that's open to all eligible people at OKTire and your auto parts group. Stock are certificates that represent ownership interests in any company, including OKTire. And in the case of the ESOP, it's what we call beneficial ownership interest. I'll explain that as we get into this in more detail. And the plan is how it all works. Employee stock ownership plan. So the company has set this up as a way for you to accumulate some savings for retirement years, and it's in addition to your existing 401k, so that program stays intact. So this is a new benefit added on top of that. And through this program, you acquire this ownership interest in the company without any investment out of your own pocket. So there won't be a payroll deduction. He's not going to come to you and say, write me a check, we're going to sell you some stock. No, it's kind of magical how that happens. I'll show you in a moment how that's possible. Well, he's pointed out the reasons really why the ESOP. It's a way of transitioning this ownership over a period of time. Another way of providing this prosperity for your retirement years through this program. And you also, because of this alignment of interests that I'm talking about, the employee ownership creates an added incentive to help the company grow and become increasingly profitable because you have that motivation to see the company grow, because I'll show you how by making that happen, it comes right back into your very own pocket in terms of your accumulation of retirement savings. So the ESOP is like your 401k, individual retirement accounts, what's called a tax-qualified retirement plan. Now the idea behind all of these plans is to have you set money aside during your working years and not pay any taxes while you're saving those monies. Then when you retire, you're presumably at a lower tax rate when you start taking out those benefits. So you're getting two kinds of tax savings, which means that you have a bigger retirement nest egg for those later years. But unlike these programs, there's no money out of your own pocket for the employee ownership benefit. Well, here's how that happened. This concept of the ESOP is generally accredited to a man named Louis Kelso out in California in the 1950s. And he realized it's pretty hard for people to set money aside for their retirement out of their day-to-day work. But if you can, the way you grow that retirement savings is by investing. Stocks, bonds, whatever, corporate America. Well, here with the ESOP, you're getting a stock investment in a corporation where you know what's involved, you can monitor what's happening, you can make some personal contribution. So it's even better in that regard than going into the general stock market. But the great creative idea that this man came up with to make it happen is by having the profits of the company create the money that let the owners sell the stock to you, the employees. From work you're doing anyway, there's money generated that lets them sell the stock to you. That's why there's no payroll deduction. There's no check out of your own pocket to buy this stock. It's the profits of the company that make that happen from work you're doing anyway. Very creative idea, and it took a while for this to become the official law of the country. And the great thing about these companies is these people who are employee owners have retirement accounts that are at least half again bigger than just 401k alone. And that's attributed to this incentive because they're interests are aligned with their company, they're part owners of their company, they're helping those companies grow and be profitable, and therefore they have bigger retirement accounts. So that's a kind of potential that can happen here. We'll talk about the beneficial ownership, how you become eligible to participate in the ESOP. How is your allocated share figure out? What slice of the ownership are you going to have? And what is vesting? How does that happen? What's it going to be worth in dollars and cents, and when and how will your benefits be distributed to you? We'll get on all these things. The plan year, because that is a date that means something, end of plan year. In your case, it's easy. It's the same as the calendar year. So December 31st is your plan year end date. So here's recapping what's happening. The company has set up this separate trust. Then in 2 or 3 years down the road, there'll be a stock sale from the owners into that trust. That will be a financed transaction because that's too much value for even that 2 or 3 years of accumulated cash to complete that sale. So there'll have to be some borrowing to let that 30% interest of the ownership take place. And then these assets in the trust will be allocated among each of you on a formula I'll talk about in just a second. Now this green arrow, that's the profits again. In the early 2 or 3 years, that's going to be just cash coming into the trust, building up a balance in the trust. And then after that short period of time, then the stock sale occurs, there'll be financing involved, and so on. So that's an overall picture of what's going to be happening here. Well, the organization of your ESOP is pretty straightforward. There's a technical, let's call it, entity called the Plan Committee. Well, in this case, it's a committee of one. Jim is acting as the one who's really been a lead in designing your particular ESOP, the particular structure of your ESOP. That's really the role of the Plan Committee. And he also acts as trustee, in effect, voting your interest on your behalf as the trustee of the trust. Now, there are situations where you as individuals will be able to express your opinion to Jim, the trustee, if there's somehow some major financial restructuring of the company that can have a dramatic effect on the value of your ownership interest, these so-called special situations, then you will have some say in directing him in those situations. There's also an intent here to set up a non-voting employee advisory committee. And this is a very good way for the trustee to, in effect, communicate the ESOP issues both ways with you, the employee owners, and the management of the company. So that'll be a representative profile of employees as the advisory committee. First of all, you are automatically eligible to enter the ESOP under the rule of a prior year of service. What that means is this. After 12 months on the job, 12 continuous months of 1,000 hours or more during that period, which is about half time, then you automatically enter the ESOP the next semi-annual date after you meet that requirement. So that's the general rule. Work 1 year, enter the plan mid-year or first of the year after you've met that 12 months on the job. And you do need to be over 21. Now, each year that the company makes additional contributions, you're going to share in those contributions if you meet this rule. And as I've said just a moment ago, the intent of the trust is to have some cash contributions year by year. You've got this $500,000 coming in for 2014. I've been told there is hope to be similar amounts coming up in the next 2 or 3 years. Then each one of those years that a contribution is made, you will share in that year's contribution if you have worked 1,000 hours that year and are still employed on December 31st, the last day of the plan year. So this is something that's looked at each and every year. Have you in fact met this criteria to participate in that year's contribution? So what's going to be your share of these contributions each year? It's a pretty simple formula. How does your compensation compare to the sum total of all participants in the ESOP? What is your little slice of the entire payroll of participants? Then you'll get that same proportionate slice of any contributions made that particular year. A simple formula of proportion. For example, let's say somebody made $40,000. The entire participating payroll is $8 million. This person would receive this 0.5% interest of that year's contribution. And of course, this is a computation that's redone each and every year that there's contributions, because your pay may change, total compensation of participants may change. Of course, the amount of entry contributions and the form of those contributions may change. Did you meet the criteria of working the 1,000 hours? Were you still on the job December 31st? All of that goes into this once a year, each and every year, just work that's done. So if you're in the 401k, you're familiar with the concept of vesting. And vesting is the fact that the value of your retirement account becomes irrevocably yours. It's something that can travel with you. And it's something that occurs over a period of time. So it's a reason to continue employment until you become fully vested in the value of your account. And you do hit fully vesting if you hit the retirement criteria, had a qualified disability, or should die with the benefit going to your heirs. Under the ESOP, the retirement age is 65. The vesting scheme is like this. It occurs over a 6-year period. 2 years in the ESOP, you're 20% vested. Next year, 40, 60, 80 to 100% vested over 6 years. So what's this going to be worth in terms of dollars and cents? Well, as employee owners, you are joining a privately owned company. So you can't log on to your computer and look up the stock price, every day, because it's privately owned. So what happens is that the value is determined once a year by an appraisal process. And then you receive a statement that shows the value of your ESOP account as of December 31st each year. A snapshot of that value determined by an appraiser. Now this appraiser, he's an outside expert, not part of your company, not part of us, your administrator, but someone who's an expert in valuing companies. So he looks at the nature and history, and you've got a long, wonderful history in your business, your general economic outlook, what's your business backlog, if any, the overall financial condition, and so on. But one of the bigger drivers of value is the profitability of the company. Did you make money in the last year? How does it look for the current year and going forward? That's going to be a big factor. Also your assets, maybe buildings and equipment and so on that you own, and similar stock sales and so on. So this is a retirement plan. So the real question is, well, when do I get my money? That's when you hit retirement or have a qualified disability, should die with a benefit going to your heir. Now these benefits will be paid out to you over a period of 5 years. Among a lot of other reasons, that's to level out the demands of cash on the ESOP trust, particularly if a lot of people retire all at once in 1 year. So those are paid out to you in installments, about 20% of your stock value year by year. Now if you leave the company early, before you hit retirement age, remember the vested value of your account stays with you. But you do have a 5-year wait to start getting that payout. And then that occurs over a 5-year period. Now in either one of these cases, if the value of your account is small, $7,500 or less, you do get that in a lump sum payment the first of the next plan year after you either leave or retire. Now these payouts will come to you in the form of cash. Well, you might think, well, gee, I thought I had a stock ownership plan. Why am I not getting stock? Well, the fact of the matter is you really want to receive these benefits in cash because that stock shares are really not very marketable. It's a privately held company. And most companies don't want small blocks of stock that are not really marketable floating out there either. So you have a lot more flexibility when you get this payment in the form of cash. All right, so what's going to make this account grow to live this retirement lifestyle like you want? So a big factor is these employer contributions in the early years. Some big cash payments over the next 2 or 3 years, and then a big stock sale. And then as that loan is paid off, those shares that were financed will be allocated to you each one of those years as the loan is being paid off. There's going to be a significant number of years here, even involved in that first 30% transaction. Now, if somebody worked here the next 4 years and they were 60% vested and decided to leave, they've made the decision to leave 40% of their allocated value behind. Remember, their vested shares is still theirs, the vested value, but the unvested portion, that gets reallocated among others. But there might be a little bit of earnings on that cash portion, the other investment account area, but mostly, over the long run, it's going to be the growth of the stock of the company. That's where the real value is going to occur over the extended period of time. And that occurs through your efforts. You have some great plant, you've got a lot of equipment, you've got a lot of inventory, but the value of this company is you, the employees. The last 55 years, you've created the value of OKTire. You're the current value. You're the ones that are going to make it be worth more in the future. So that's the driver, is you. You are the company. That's where it's going to come from. This is not exactly what the picture is happening here, but just to give you kind of the general concept, to drive home this point, that in the early years, companies are making contributions generally significantly to the ESOP. In this example, the first 5 years in the light-colored bars. Then the annual appraisal of those contributions, that can go up, it can go down. So again, the point here is this is not a guaranteed retirement plan. This is a stock ownership plan. It's based on the value of the stock of the company. So obviously your interest is having the value of that stock keep growing. Well, since the appraiser looks at profits of the company as a big driver of value, the formula is pretty simple. Revenue's up, expenses down, profits go up, value of the stock goes up. Not your numbers, but just to give you an example. Even if sales only went up like 2%, but all your expenses of doing business are flat, there's a big factor on profitability. Likewise, even if sales are flat, but you're more productive, cost of doing business goes down even a little bit, it can have a big effect on profits. At both sides, wow, tremendous effect. To drive this home, I talked about the alignment of interests between you and the company now that you're becoming employee owners. And how is that going to come back to really increase the value of your retirement account? I'm going to give you an example of how this works. In this little company, let's say that each employee does something to contribute to profit of $1,000 a year. More customers, more production, getting those tires on there faster, whatever it amounts, creating profitability. Medium-sized company, 200 employees, okay, $200,000 of new profits they didn't have last year because everybody's working together to make this happen. There's a multiplication factor between the profits and the value of the stock. I don't know what it is for OKTire, but 5 is not unusual. So these people have created now new value in this example of $1 million for this company. If they own 30%, like you will be, not too far away, they're going to share in this in this new value to the amount of $300,000, or back to $1,500 per person. Well, forget the exact numbers here, but get this point. Where else except through employee ownership For every dollar that you contribute to the profits of the company, can you get that amount or even more in your very own personal retirement account? This is it. This is the message of employee ownership. This is what I talk about. You're really working for yourself. Because to the extent that you're creating profits for OKTire that increase its value, it's coming right back into your account. So if you get nothing else out of this rapid fire briefing I'm giving you, this is it. This is employee ownership. This is what it's all about. Okay, so what are some of the things that you can do to contribute to this profitability? Well, you can come up with your own ideas, but anywhere from customer service to less waste and spoilage. But I like this personal commitment. That comes back exactly to what I talked about on the previous slide. I also use this sort of, putting in your 2 cents worth. You've got a lot of processes that you do, but it looks to me like fairly standard procedures. But who knows, maybe you've got a new way of doing it that's a little more efficient, a little more productive. I call that putting in your 2 cents worth, sharing best practices, with your peers, because that again comes back to potential profitability. Well, ESOPs in fact do add value. There's been a lot of studies of this by universities and so on, because it's a little bit of an unusual form of ownership. These metrics are just a few slices of how this can work, where there's added value to the company and to your employees that accrue because of this alignment of interest of employee owners. So we've told you that this is a new retirement plan being added to your 401k. Explain that if you worked 1,000 hours in 12 months in 2013, you automatically entered the ESOP January 1st, 2014. The general rule is that you work 12 months, put in 1,000 hours, you enter at the next semi-annual date. Your allocation of each year's contributions is based on how does your pay compare to sum total of all participants. You're vested in the ESOP over a 6-year period. It's valued once a year by an appraisal process, at which time you're going to get a statement showing that. Then your retirement benefits are paid out to you over a 5-year period, which you are then highly recommended to roll that over into individual retirement account. We've given you some examples of the thought process of your contribution to make your account grow over time, because it's only going to really come from you, the employees. That's going to what will create the value. So you're going to have a bigger and better retirement account through employee ownership.